Hello fam, yeah, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for your love on the last video. So today we're going to be learning how to cut and sew this dress. So this dress, it's in two parts. It has a collar and it also have a kind of gathers at the lower end. So we're going to be making use of two different fabric, a patterned fabric and a plain fabric. So the first thing we're going to do is you have to know your full length for this gown. After which you are going to be dividing them into two based on your choice. But to work with what this inspo we are using, I'm going to be making the lower end, which has the pleat 7 inches. And for the length of the dress itself, it's a short dress, I'm going to be making use of 29 inches. So for my body, I'm going to be making use of that 29 inches. And also for this particular dress, you need to know your neck measurements. Now, this neck measurement is very important because this is what is going to help your collar stay firm on your neck. So if you don't take this measurement, then is as much as you might end up with any size of collar you don't really want. So I'm just going to go ahead to draft my basic bodies. If you're on this channel, you should be used to this, and if not, I'll be dropping a link to how you can go about drafting you know a front bodies. So what I'm doing here is just inserting my horizontal lines, my vertical lines rather. That is starting from my shoulder to my chest line. That is the first line you can see me. So the first line here is my shoulder to my chest line. That's, you can see the way I'm labeling chest line. Then the next line is my shoulder to my nipple, which is also called my bust line. Now the third line you can see me rule here is my shoulder to waistline. Okay, and after which I also went on to rule my shoulder to my hip line, and lastly I'm going to be measuring my shoulder to my full length. So remember I told you that this full length is in two parts. So for this first part I need about 29 inches, but when I was drafting I used about 30 inches because I needed 1 inch for joining. Okay, having done all this, I forgot to insert my shoulder to underbust line. So I just went ahead to indicate that, okay, as you can see me do. I indicated my shoulder to underbust line, and we are going to be needing this underbust line just because we are going to be closing in the bust dart. All right. So this gown is a gown that does not have any dart. So it's not as if it does not have dart, but this dart is actually invisible. So the next thing I went on to do was to divide my shoulder measurements by two, and I inserted what I have on my shoulder line on the upper part and my chest line. Now what I'm doing here is trying to create my armhole point. So I went down by 1 inch to create my slope. Here you're going to be needing your neck measurement. Mine is 15 inches. Now to get something accurate, your neck width, you are going to be dividing your neck width by 5. As you can see, I wrote down the measurement. So divide your neck width or your client's neck width by 5. Now for my, I'm going to be having 3 inches, and I just went ahead to indicate this 3 inches. Now for my neck depth, for the neck depth, so that it's not going to be too deep and it's going to fit well, you divide your neck depth by 6. So this is a standard I just use, and so far so good. I've been using it for a lot of clients and it just works for me. So fashion designing is something really, really you just know what works for you. So I just went ahead to divide what I have left on that armhole line into two. I went in by 0.5 inch, and I went ahead to divide my bust measurement by 4. Mine gave me 9. So I'm going to be using that to curve in my armhole. So now this first part is for my front armhole, as you can see. So I went on from the second end just to create my back armhole. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to go to my bust line, and here I'm going to be inserting my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 7.5. Having divided it by 2, I got 3.75. So I'm just going to insert that measurement on the bust line, the waistline, the hip line, down to my full length. This is because I'm going to be closing up my waist dart. So I would need you to pay attention because this is just the highlights of what we give this particular dress the fit on your body. So what I'm going to do next is from that waistline, I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch on both sides. This is because I want to create my dart. So I went on from the bust point to, join this to the dart legs on the waist region, and I'm going to connect this to my full length. Just follow what I'm doing. So from this point now, what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm just going to go ahead to insert my circumference measurement. So my waist is 28 divided by 4, it's going to give me 7. So after doing that, I added the 1 inch for that to make sure it's balanced, and I added 1.5 as my seam allowance. Okay, I did same for the upper part, added my seam allowance on the armhole line. Then I went to my hip measurement divided by 4. I marked that point. I measured the dart that is there. I added it back, and I added about 1.5 for my seam allowance. Okay, so having done that, that is what I'm going to be using to shape this gown. Remember that this is the front part of the gown, right? So I went ahead to connect from that my chest line down to my waist region, and for my waist region I made use of my hip curve to create that particular hip yeah, hip measurement. So the next thing I'm going to do now is on the lower end, I'm just going to go ahead on this lower end, which is my where my full length is. I'm going to measure what I have on my hip region. Okay, you're going to measure what you have on the hip region, and I just went ahead to put the same measurement on my full length. Now what I did was just took 0.5 inch off. I took 0.5 inch off so that I can have that shapy fit, so that your curves will be out. So if you don't want that, then you can just insert whatever you have on the hip on that particular part. But the to make the dress come out very well, I would suggest you go in by 0.5 inch. So we're almost done with the front part. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be inserting what I have as my bust that excess. Now this you have to subtract whatever your back length is, whatever you have for your back length, that is your shoulder to your waist at the back for the half length, from whatever you have from your shoulder to the waist for the front length. So I inserted mine was 1.5, and I inserted that as my bust that. Now the next thing I'm going to do now is just to cut out the excess. I don't need any longer, and I'm going to be using this pattern paper to cut both my front and my back. So I just went ahead to insert like 1 inch. Remember that we're going to be inserting a collar, so I went ahead to just mark 1 inch for the depth of my back pattern. So the next thing I did was to, cut off my back neck first, because I'll be cutting out my back pattern first before going ahead to cut the front. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do now is this bust that I'm going to be opening up this bust that because I want to go ahead to close this waist that. Now remember I told you that this particular dress it has invisible dart. Okay, it has invisible dart. Yes, it does not look as though it have any dart. No dart was sewn on it, but the dart has to be invisible on the pattern for you to have a proper fit for this particular outfit. So I just went ahead to close the dart, and I went ahead to close up my bust dart too. As you can see, it has created space for the bust dart. Now because I wanted to cut the back pattern, I went ahead to press down that bust point to make it flat, and I added my seam allowance for my zipper about 1.5 inch in front, and I just went ahead to cut the back pattern as you can see me do. So this is what the final look is giving. I'm sorry I did not iron my fabric at this point, but I'm going to be doing so later. So now for the front part back, the front part, if you notice, I went ahead to pin that bust tight, making sure it's very visible. Look at the way I pinned it from. It's very important. So I made sure I follow the shape of this particular pattern on my outfit, and I just went ahead to pin it down and then to cut it out. So this is what the pattern is looking like, the cloth is looking like after cutting it out. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be placing my back pattern on this front pattern, and I'm going to be shaping it at the side. Now you don't need to cut, you don't need to do anything to the neckline for now because we're going to be making use of a collar. So all you need to do is to just place the back on the front and ensure that you pin the zipper excess so that you can shape this your gown properly. Also, okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now, okay, for the lower part that has pleats, I'm going to be measuring what I have on my full length measurement. Okay, taking my seam allowance out. My seam allowance of 1.5, I took it out. Whatever I have left, I had about 8.25. Now, this is going to be used to calculate the amount of fabric we need for our pleats. Now, that means 8.25 for the front pattern, I'll be needing two, right? Remember, this cloth is on fold. That means for the front, I'll be needing two piece, two 8.25. For the back, I'll be needing 8.25 twice. So it means I need 8.25 four times. When I multiply it together, 8.25 times 4, okay, I got, okay, 100 and about 160 inches for my um pleat. So I'm going to be needing that particular width, okay. Just multiply whatever you have, that 8.25, when you multiply it by 4, whatever answer you have, at least for this particular tutorial, this dress, for you to have something very full like that, multiply it by 3. So I ended up working with about 60 inches length when talking about the length, and the width was 8.5. Remember, I needed 7 inches, but I added 1 inch for sewing allowance on the lower pattern for joining it to the top. So when I open it up, I had about 60 inches for the length of each. So when I join it together, I'm going to be making use of 120 inches. So that was the fabric I have at hand. So if you want yours to be much more wider, fuller rather, you can cut more length as you want. Now this is the part where we are going to be cutting the collar, and look at the way I folded the fabric. I just folded the fabric into two, and after joining the back to the front, this is the next thing I'm going to do. Look at the way I folded the neck region, okay. Look at the way I just folded it to get the middle part, and I'm going to be placing it on the fabric like this. Okay, so I'm going to be placing it on the center front of this black fabric. The black fabric is on fold, so I'm going to be placing it on the center front of this black fabric. Now this is very important, okay. Now I'm going to mark out the shape of the neck. That is what I really need, just the shape of the neck, okay. And I'm just going to check out the amount I need. For my, I think it was about 8 points, I think 8.25. So I just went ahead to check if it was accurate. So you want to take your time to do this, and my kindly suggestion is that you can add about 1 inch extra to be on the safer side. So I just went to I started from the center front proper and added the 0.5 inch because I know that I'm going to be joining this at the other end. So I just went ahead to mark what I need, and after doing that, I discovered that okay, this is going to be enough. So you can see I shifted to the upper region, and from there now I'm going to be determining the width I need. So for the width, I made use of 2.5 inches. This include my sewing allowance. So you can do more than that. You can do whatever length you want, or whatever width rather you want. So this is what the shape is looking like. So this is what it's going to look like at the end of the day. Now for the particular fronts, if you notice, just to get the shape of what I want, I'm going to be cutting that front on fold because I don't want to be joining that front part. I just want to do the joining once. So this is what it looked like. I went ahead to cut two pieces on fold because I need two colors. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be applying interfacing to one part of this neck, this collar for the neck. So I also went ahead to cut my sleeve. I'll be leaving a tutorial where you can learn how to cut a sleeve if you don't know. Now for this particular sleeve, I measure out a rectangle which is on fold. I have about 6 inches or 5.5 inches, and I needed about 2.5 inch at the end of the day. So all the other excess, I'm going to be sewing them out to get what I need. So after sewing, this is what it's going to be looking like. All right, fam, at this particular point, I'm going to be joining the pleats to my dress. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be doing for the pleat. I've joined the piece together, and I'm just going to be pleating with my hand in no particular order. Okay, I'm just going to be creating pleats, especially on the, I made the front region fuller than the back region. So this is totally up to you. Now for the neck, I've ironed my center front. As you can see, the crease line. So this is what my collar look like after joining at the end of the day. And I'm going to be fixing, but I would like you to pay attention to what I'm going to do here to make your work neat. I'm going to be cutting facing for this neckline, okay? Because you don't want your collar, to be jumping up from the inside when you're done fixing. So this is just a technique to make your work look really neat and to give your collar more like a proper finishing. So I just went ahead to cut a collar that I'm going to be using to cut a facing rather that I'm going to be using to turn this collar when I'm done sewing the collar onto the fabric. So you want to take your time to do this. So I just went ahead to mark mine. Then I think I marked about 2 inches for the wideness, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut it as you can see. So far, after cutting it, now I would like you to pay attention to this particular process. Now I'm going to be fixing my collar. Look, I see that front that has no joining, that center front that has no joining will be what will be in front, starting from the mid part of this front dress that has the crease line. So I'm going to be pinning like this. I'm going to be pinning on the right side of the dress. I'm pinning on the right side, fam, not the wrong side. So this is so important. You are going to be pinning on the right side, not the wrong side. So I'm going to be pinning. Now, if you look at my zipper region, I've not fixed my zipper yet, but after I will make sure I fix my zipper even before sewing this collar. I'm going to be showing you that process, okay? So you're going to be pinning up all these parts and ensure that this your collar is the collar the amount you have on your collar is equal to the amount you should have on your neckline to make your work easy and of course neat. So I'm just going ahead to check. I discovered I did not pin properly, and after pinning I discovered that it was okay. So I'm going to be pinning the other side too to check before I even go ahead to the sewing table to join this piece together. So after joining, I discovered that the other part too was also perfect. So I'm going to be going ahead to the sewing table to do this. So as you can see, I've sewn in my zip. I made use of an invisible zipper. So this is what it's looking like. So I've pinned everything down and it's accurate at this point. So I'm going to be bringing the facing I cut out for my dress, and I'm going to be pinning that facing at the middle with my pin to ensure that everything is accurate. And look at where the facing got. It got to the edge, right? So I'm going to be sewing the facing on the collar. So it's like the collar is sandwiched between the facing and the dress itself. So I'm just going to go ahead to pin and sew as you can see me do. So if you've watched to this point, fam, and you're getting value, do well to subscribe, do well to turn on notification bell so that when I post videos, you get to see them. And also don't forget to share with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment. It goes a long way in encouraging me to do more. All right, fam, I'm done sewing the collar and the facing. This is what it's looking like. Next up, you might have to trim and notch the mid part, then go ahead to top stitch on the facing itself. So you have to top stitch on this facing, and if your work is bulky, I will advise you trim before you start this particular process. So fam, this is what it looked like at the end of the day. This is what the outfit is looking like on my body. I hope you learned something. This is the final look. Do well to subscribe, do well to share this video, and like also. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.